Everybody, welcome to the B. Dawson Show. We're excited this week to have my friend Blair from New Zealand with us. And I'm going to let Blair introduce himself so you guys can hear how we met and who he is. So Blair, kick it off.
Hi, Brendan. Yeah, thanks for having me on. My name's Blair Whitaker. We met in Sydney at the 10X conference, and you just resonated with me, like the whole way you talked, and we connected, and I told you my story, and now we're here talking about it.
And now we're here, and so what I wanted to do is share your story because we briefly met at the 10X boot camp in Australia about a month ago, and you started talking to me about things that have gone on in your life. I don't want to spoil it for people, but kind of your life story at a critical point in time. And what I'd like you to do is kind of talk about, what you were doing, why you were doing it, and then we'll get into what happened and then what happened after that, because I think it's very inspirational for people. I know that I only talked to you for like 5 or 8 minutes, and I really wanted to set this up because your story is very inspirational, and I'd love for people to understand kind of why. And so do you mind kind of walking us through your experience and explaining how you got there?
I was a commercial pilot and a professional skydiver by trade. So basically flew planes. My main flying was aerobatics, taking people up for aerobatic joy flights, loops and barrel rolls. And then the skydiving side of things, jumping out of planes for a living, taking people for tandems and doing videography with skydiving as well.
By the way, people my whole life have been trying to get me to do that, and I have refused it because I'm scared of heights and scared of jumping out of things that are flying in the air.
I'm scared of heights too. You wouldn't believe it, but I chase my fears.
There you go. That's great.
Something I'm afraid of.
So you're an aerobatic pilot. Did I hear that right? Acrobatic? How do you say it?
Aerobatic.
Aerobatic. Okay. And you were a professional skydiver.
Correct. Yeah.
And you would take tandem people and everything. So kind of walk through kind of how many jumps, like how experienced were you, and kind of walk us through what happened.
Yeah. So I've got 2,600 skydives.
Wow.
And I was on a contract over in Canada. I've basically been given a summer contract over there where I'd go over and take people for tandems. And we're doing a jump, just a team together, just get to know each other and have a bit of fun. On that jump, the skydive side of it went really well. My parachute opened, and then coming into land, I was doing the most dangerous thing skydivers do, which is called swooping. It's basically I dive the parachute towards the ground in a spiral, level out at the last second, and you skim along the ground at over 100 kilometers an hour.
Wow.
I don't remember this at all, this part. It's just what I've been told happened from other people that saw it. I leveled out really nicely, but there was a bit of wind disturbance, they said, and I dropped just enough that my knees clipped the ground. It flicked me upside down. Still flying straight, caught upside down in my canopy, in my wing. And the next time I hit the ground was face first at about 70 kilometers an hour.
Wow.
Yeah. I was dead on the ground, face down. Miles, he landed behind me, dropped his gear, ran over, rolled me over, got my helmet off. I wasn't breathing. I was gone. And he did CPR, got me breathing again. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be alive.
Wow. So technically you crashed, then you were technically had died.
Correct.
I guess I don't know if that's technically or not, but he revived you.
Yeah.
And how long did all that take from when he got to you and you were out and then he revived you?
I'm not 100% sure on the exact times, but it took long enough that they basically put me in the category of basically brain damaged.
Wow.
And I did, yeah, I did die. I did stop breathing once more in one of the three ambulances that I had to take. Um, and they resuscitated me again. I took
So
two,
twice.
yeah, I took two van ambulances and a helicopter as well to get me to the hospital, get dealt to.
And so here you have this crash. You die not once, but twice. You have to be revived. And what was your physical hitting the ground at 70 kilometers? What was your physical condition?
Yeah, so all my damage was above the neck. I broke my whole top jaw off, so it was floating, and every bone in my neck was damaged. The worst was C1 and C5 and 6. So C5 and 6 was smashed, compressed together and twisted, and a lot of swelling. And C1 was shattered into three pieces. Um, they had to put plates in C5, C6. So they went in from the front, cut open, pulled my throat to the side, and put a plate into my neck to hold those stable. So it was putting pressure on my spinal cord, which is basically causing me to be paralyzed from the neck down.
And so you go through this surgery. I mean, first, you were lucky just to be alive, to be in a position to even have the surgery. And you go, I'm assuming they did the surgery like immediately as soon as you got there, right? Like they were trying to figure out how to put you back together.
Yeah, so they're actually trying to get in contact with my family back in New Zealand because of the situation that the surgeon looked at, and he said you could have 12 surgeons sitting around a table and they'd all have a different opinion of how to tackle and approach the surgery to give the best options, because there was still potential that they could do more damage if they went in a certain way that could actually make things worse,
Oh my gosh.
which you wouldn't think could make much worse than what it was.
And you don't know any of this is going on because you're unconscious, right?
Yeah, so well, no, actually, so I don't remember any of this going on, but I was, apart from the times when I wasn't breathing, I was conscious and I was communicating through blinking, using
Wow.
my eyes to communicate.
So you come through the other side and now you're in recovery, right? So you're out for some period of time, my guess is. They did this surgery, which you could have easily died again, right? It was complicated enough. Once you were in a position where you made it through that and you're in recovery, and you could actually talk or communicate. Like, how long was it before you went from the tragic accident, not remembering it, to remembering what was going on?
Well, the first week and a half, there was no memory whatsoever of that part. But from there on in, the memory was getting better again and coming back, and I was just dealing with the situation I'd put myself in, and I found that quite a lot easier than I think a lot of people, because I knew the risks I was taking. Although I didn't think I was going to have that happen to me, I could actually accept what I'd done to myself a little bit, because I take responsibility for what I did. Other people in the hospital that you could see recovering from injuries, and they just felt like they've been hard done by. Like, why me? Why did this happen? Rather than going, well, it's happened, and this is what I've done to cause it, and what can I do to make it better?
So from your mindset, you were like, I did this. I'm laying here. I can't believe this is where I am now versus where I was 2 weeks ago, loving life and jumping out of planes and and now um, you're in recovery mode. What are they telling you would be the most likely outcome of the rest of your life?
So in those early days, those first few weeks, they were telling me, get used to living in a wheelchair for the rest of your life. Um, yeah, that was quite hard to hear that I wasn't going to be able to even walk again. At first, or I might be able to walk a bit, but I'll be needing a wheelchair because I couldn't walk for periods of time or stand up for periods of time at all.
For someone who can't really relate to this, I mean, I think people can hear this and say, this is like tragic, right? This is really uh, a dire situation. But for the people that are listening to this, what's it like to go from being active and healthy and doing all these things and doing things that, first of all, I'd be scared to death just to jump out of an airplane anyways, but to be doing things that are dangerous, but with your skills where you feel confident about it. What's it like? Like, what's the mindset when you realized it didn't work out the right way and everything's altered and changed? What is the inside your mind dialogue? I know you had to convince yourself, I made this choice, and you tell yourself I'm responsible for these actions, but what is that flip-flopping in your mind? Do you go through a window of why was I doing this, and like what kinds of things would you think about in your best and darkest moments?
Yeah, you do. You go through times of sitting there going, "What was I thinking about? Even was it worth? Was it worth it?" Um, and they're feeling like there's no hope, and a lot of that can actually be determined by the people that are around you trying to support you as well. There was a moment there in the spinal unit where I hit rock bottom, and by this stage I was able to get up out of the chair on crutches and walk a bit. And the spinal unit's just down the road from the Auckland motorway, and I actually got up out of my wheelchair and walked out the front door of the spinal unit on crutches and started walking down the road. And I was considering throwing myself off the bridge into the motorway, just going, what's the point of all this? It was quite tough when my mother drove past to come visit. And she was driving down the road as I was walking the other way, and I saw she didn't see me, but I saw her, and I was just like, what am I doing? I've already put my family through enough. I couldn't do it. I turned around, walked back in, and when everyone was looking for me in the spinal unit, Mum was like, where you been? I said, oh, I've just been going for a walk. And yeah, that was probably the toughest moment, one of the toughest moments in the whole getting my head straight.
What was the extent of their certainty that you wouldn't walk again? How profoundly were they saying that to you? Were they certain, or were they saying that as to keep you from thinking that something different might happen? Like what? Because I want to get to the story where you got back from that walk where you were thinking of throwing yourself off the motorway or motor park, into making the decision first that you were going to walk again. Like, to frame it for the people listening to this, how profoundly were they telling you, hey dude, listen, you're probably never going to walk again?
Yeah, the way it came across to me was it was a certainty. It was like in the early stages, it was, this is the way it's going to be. It was not until actually my toe wiggled that I suddenly realized, hold on, no offense to all these medical people because they're amazing and they're the reason I'm still alive, but they don't know everything. When my toe wiggled a bit, I was like, oh, I think I can do more than what they're telling me. And I started pushing and focusing on that. That was sort of, I think that was the turning point there, was the toe wiggling.
You just found one little thing that you could put your mindset and anchor into to elevate your belief about what can be done, and you just kept working that one little thing, right?
Yeah. As soon as I knew that, hold on, what they're saying isn't concrete, um, that just kick-started everything in action. And I this is about 5 weeks, maybe 5 weeks or so into the. I was in ICU for 6.5 weeks, and it was about the 5 week mark. The physio came in and said, "What we're going to do is try to get you. We're going to help you spin you around on the bed, sit you up. We want you to try to stand up, and then if you can do that, we want you to try to take 2 steps forward. We'll be holding you." So I had 2 people holding me with a big bench to rest my arms on because I couldn't support myself. And they said, if this works, by the end of the week, we'll see if we can get you to step all the way to the doorway. And so they spun me around, lifted me up on the bed, sat the bench in front of me with the wheels on it, and set my arms on the bench. And they're like, okay, give it a go. And so I stood up. I took the first step and the second step, and they're like, awesome. And I just carried on going. I got to the doorway and said, what's next? They didn't, and they're like, oh, we've got to actually plan what we're going to do next. That was the next.
They thought they were going to spend a month 2 or 3 just getting you to take your first step.
And that, I believe, it is stubbornness on my part. That's the easiest way to say it. I'm stubborn, and I get an idea in my head. It can be a good thing. It can be a bad thing, but I just lock in on it and go for it.
So talk about so at that point you were able to say I'm gonna do this. So talk about your recovery for a period of time, and then let's catch everybody up to what you've been doing since then.
Yeah, so I mean, like I said, recovery did have ups and downs. At 6.5 weeks, they flew me back to New Zealand to the spinal unit on a stretcher. And in the spinal unit, I definitely had all my challenges, like just basic things like you couldn't even go to the toilet by yourself. You had a catheter in, and it was something that was potentially going to be there for the rest of your life. It's more common than not with this sort of injury that's the case. The doctors and nurses in there would tried to get me off the catheter twice, but didn't succeed. And I was sitting in the doctor's office in my wheelchair one day and turned around to him and said, when are we going to try to get this out again? And he said, we haven't succeeded the last 2 times. We'll give it a couple more months and see how it goes. And I turned around, looked across at him, and there was a cup on the table. I said, can you please stand up, drop your pants, and pee into that cup? And he looked at me confused, and I said, that's what you've been asking me to do. You have the curtains open, it's a hallway of people walking past every time you tried to get me to do it. Even before this accident, I wouldn't have been able to do that. Guys can't pee on command in front of people. It's, stage fright. And he sort of nodded his head and goes, I agree with you, actually, that I couldn't do that either. So we'll try again next week. And that following week was the last time I had the catheter in. We got it out, gone. If I hadn't actually questioned, even though he's an experienced doctor and he knows his stuff, if I hadn't questioned him and we'd gone another 2 months without trying, my muscles would have got more and more lazy, and the chances of me actually succeeding the next time were probably going to be less again. So you should question
Everything. Well, I mean, it starts with you deciding you're going to wiggle your little toe, and then realizing that if I can feel that, I'm going to go for it all. And then from that point forward, just pushing everything to get what you want versus being given what somebody else is trying to either convince you will get, or diminishing your belief about what can be done. And I mean, all these are applying to real life principles here, I think, which is what you're inspired to be talking about. So once you made that decision, hey, I got the catheter out, like I'm going to keep moving forward here. I'm not going to go backwards. How long was it before you felt like you were back in where you were controlling the day-to-day routine and not having to be reliant on the medical profession? And in like, how long was your recovery?
Oh, I mean, the I was in the spinal unit for about 2.5 or just under 2.5 months. The whole time in hospital, I was about 4 months.
Wow.
But I wasn't unreliant on any of them for a few years. It took me a few years to get to the point where um, I felt like I had full control of my life. And even saying that, I still have struggles. This hand I'm still going to physio, trying to work on this hand.
How long ago from today, how long ago was it that the accident happened?
So it was 4.5 years ago, May the 14th, 2015. It's a day that will stick in my life.
So talk a little bit about where you're at right now, what you're doing and what you set your mind to and what you've done. Because I know in just the brief few minutes, I was amazed by your story. So let's fill everybody in kind of on what you've done with this situation and what you've completed here in the last 2 years.
Yeah, so when I got out of the spinal unit, I actually went and stayed with my parents for a bit, just back in their hometown, and just to basically get on my feet, really. But my dream was always to get back down to Queenstown, which I considered home, in the South Island of New Zealand. And about 2 years ago, I got to that point where I felt like, okay, I can do this, and jumped in a car and drove down here. It's a very outdoorsy place. I had one of my, I think it was my occupational therapist when I was back up in the North Island, sort of said to me, I kept on saying, I need to get back to Queenstown. She said, why? And I said, because it's full of outdoorsy people and people that are similar mindset to myself. And she almost took offense to it. She was like, I'm outdoorsy and active. And I was like, yeah, we're in a town of 200,000 people. There's probably 20,000 people in this town that are active and people that will get out and do it. There's only 30,000 people down in Queenstown, but 20,000 of them are active and get out and do it. The chances of me rubbing shoulders with people that are doing what I want to do is so much more likely down in Queenstown. And it was. I moved to Queenstown, started doing small walks, getting bigger walks. My wife and I, earlier this year, we went and did the Kepler Track, which is a 4-day hike. So just getting myself active again, getting out there. And about, was it a year and a half ago, I was like, I want to get back in the air. So I went and got my paragliding license, and I'm paragliding. I got my recreational pilot's license back so I could fly my plane still, and go up and do some flying. I'm working on getting my private license back because I can only do aerobatics if I've got an instructor on board with my recreational. But I'm working on that so I can get back up and do loops and barrel rolls again, because it's a lot of fun. And since the accident, I've only done one skydive since, and that was, my friends took me up for a tandem. So I was strapped to the front of one of the boys, and 6 of the other crew members all jumped out with me, and we did a big circle in the sky. It was an awesome experience to get there flying again. it is my goal to do a solo skydive again.
Wow.
Um,
What was it like jumping out of the plane after all that? Was there any nervousness about going up there and what could happen if you didn't land right again, or was there any fear because you don't really remember what happened at the end of the time that you went? Like what was your mindset getting ready to jump out of that plane?
Definitely the exiting the plane. There's a bit of fear because even though I don't remember the accident, I think tandems are far scarier for like mentally for me than solo jumping, even though they're safer. They're the safest um, uh, thing ever. You're actually more chance of injuring yourself uh, traveling to the drop zone to do the jump than you are doing a jump. Um, but when you're not in control, when you put someone else in control of yourself, that's quite scary.
Yeah.
Um, so definitely, but landing, once you've landed, it's just an amazing feeling to actually know that you've accomplished that, got past one of those stepping stones in your life.
So here, after that tragic accident, the recovery period, now you jump again, you're flying again. So you've been able to take back. You're out working out, walking. You're taking back control of your life. So talk about what it was that you said to me that you want to spend the rest of your life doing. Like what's the passion and the joy that came from all this tragedy?
I I like helping people. Uh, that's probably the easiest way to say it. Like even back when I was skydiving, the solo jumps, like I said, solo jumps were amazing. They're so much fun because you can do what you want. With a tandem, the passenger's safety was way more important to you than you doing some crazy maneuver. But I still got a kick off that tandem because every time I landed that parachute, you unclip the customer, they turn around and you see that look on their face that they've achieved something that they've always dreamed of achieving. Uh, and I think I got more out of that than they did, just seeing it. And I mean, since my accident, uh, it's maybe questioned a lot of things, but one thing I'm sure of is that I can help people get past the struggles they're doing, whether that's spinal injured patients, which I think is the first step to help people because it's something very close to what I've experienced, but people in general getting past a roadblock in their life that they feel like is just they're unable to actually get past. I feel like my story can now help people get past a roadblock, a small or big one.
Yeah, because you think about the mindset of questioning yourself and the decisions you make and the impact it's had on your life and having to navigate through all that only to find yourself jumping out of an airplane again and flying your airplane and being able to walk and being able to start reliving your life again, or living your life again. I mean, those are all huge messages because people, when they're struggling, their struggle is not going to be anywhere. Most persons struggle, or most people struggle, is not going to be to the extreme that you've struggled, and the torment you put yourself through in the decision making and then the recovering process and then the justifying or rationalizing or getting mad at yourself and the blaming, and you go through all this stuff. I've been through it from different things, and people get stuck, and then some people sometimes fight their way out of that like you have, or some people find themselves unfortunately stuck in that mode for a long time, and for a variety of reasons. It can be, like you said, it could be a tragedy or an accident or depression or bad luck or being in the wrong place at the wrong time and having the wrong things happen. And so what I'm hearing you say is that you want to take those experiences, those moments, because you can tell when somebody feels the situation they're in, like they can immediately connect to the pain and then explain how they were able to break through that and work their way out of it. So is that the area that you want to spend your time going forward with other people?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's the way I see it is, don't sweat the small stuff, and everything is small stuff. It's quite a common sort of quote, and I think problem is with once you get your fixated your perception on a certain problem and you can't see around it, the problem just seems to grow, but it's actually tiny. And if you can just step back from it and think about it a bit more. I mean, the fact that I had to lie in a bed for so long, had a lot of time to think and not do much. It felt like I had, heaps of time on my hands, which gives you a time to step back and actually look at the problem. If you're ever having troubles with the problem, that's the best way to attack it, is step back, look at it, and then attack it again.
That's great. Great advice. Well, what do you want to say, Blair, to the people on the show that are struggling in business, or they're struggling personally or professionally or maybe financially, or in their, could be from anything, and they're in that mindset where they're spending all their energy compoundingly making themselves upset and frustrated? Like, how would you recommend they break through that and start focusing on, in your case, the recovery and the dominating your situation in order to get back your freedom and control? How would you advise or guide somebody who's in that position right now to find what you found?
I think, like I said, stepping back from that problem, and that could be just finding something else that you like doing, even for a few hours or a day. Go off and do that and clear your head a bit, and then look back into the problem if you have that ability to do it in the problem. Some problems are time critical, where you have to change your attack on the problem a little bit. But yeah, stepping back from that problem, go and do something that you enjoy, whether that's playing golf. Go have a game of golf to clear your head, and then come back, and don't approach that problem the same way. One thing I do, one saying I've learned since this accident was, whenever you're pointing the finger at a problem, an issue, whether it's a person or something else, there's three fingers pointing back at you. There's three different things you could do differently to that one thing that person's done. So look at what you could do differently rather than what they could do to fix your problem.
Taking control for yourself, and then the rest of your, some very specific things you said that I think are important is when people were telling you you can't do it, for you to make the decision that you will determine what you can or can't do, not somebody else's influence. How would you express that to somebody who's listening to the wrong people?
You can sit there and start asking more people, but you're potentially just going to get the same answers, because some of your problems are problems that no one else has got the information for you. Yeah, I think the way to look forward, a story I had with when I was still in the spinal unit. I was on the phone to my mother, and talking about the fact that I could slip my shoes on, but I couldn't even reach the shoelaces to do them up. My finger dexterity wasn't really that great. I was like probably about 3 inches away from my feet to even reach my shoelaces. But even just doing a shoelace on the bed to see if I could move it was a problem. And my mum said, "Oh, well, I'll get you some slip-on shoes." And my poor mother having to deal with me, I have said sorry many times to her. I turned around and said, "You're just like all the people here, Mum. You're trying to find a way around the problem. I want to smash straight through it."
There you go.
And she was like, "Okay." And I was like, a week later, Mum came to visit, and I was like, "Check this out." And I reached down and I did my shoelace up. I was like, I managed to stretch myself far enough to reach the shoelace, and I managed to just get enough dexterity to do it. And it was only a week. But if I'd put those slip-on shoes on, I'd probably still be struggling to do shoelaces up today.
I think there's a lesson there for business owners too, or people that want to make it easier, solve other people's problems by figuring out a different solution versus just encouraging them to learn and break through so they can build their confidence in doing the next thing versus trying to make it easy for people to just succeed without having to put the work in. I think that was a huge example you just gave.
Yeah. Good.
So what do you want to do the next 3 to 5 years? What's your big picture? What's your big thing going forward?
Well, my wife and I, we've got a real estate business, accommodation business, both short and long term, and we want to grow that. I also want to go talk to people and hopefully help them with my story. Planning my first talk actually is waiting to hear back. Was up in the spinal unit in the South Island to go and talk to people that are early days hurting. So for me, that would be something great, and maybe step that out to a full motivational speaking thing circuit for people, not just spinal injury patients, but people in business, people in all different struggles. Hopefully I can help them actually find a way forward and where they want to go. And hopefully May the 14th next year, I'll be doing my first solo skydive. If I can get this hand working the way I want it to work. That'll be the 5-year anniversary of my jump.
How exciting would that be?
Scary.
Yeah, I bet. But another thing, that you're facing your fears, right?
I've always had that approach in life, is if you're afraid of something, face it. And I've found the more you do that, the less you fear it. I lived in Australia for a while, and snakes and spiders, we don't have snakes in New Zealand at all. So snakes and spiders to me were a big fear. So the second week I was living in Australia, I had someone bring their pet snake into our house and wrap it around my hands. And it was scary, and I don't think I ever want to do it again, but I faced it, and it did drop my fear in snakes a little bit, but it hasn't got rid of it.
Well, that's probably a good thing. Better to be cautious.
Yeah.
So, look, Blair, I really appreciated your story when I met you. I appreciate it even deeper now. I want to spread the word around, and, Grant Cardone and myself are planning on coming back to Australia and New Zealand. Want to build relationships with people who have done amazing and remarkable things, of which you definitely fit that category. But I think it's really important for my listeners and people who trust me to understand that I like to bring people on this show, just not people who have succeeded in business or whatever, but someone who's actually succeeded in overcoming a huge life obstacle, but did it with courage and if this helps you, I know your endeavor is to go out and help other people, getting the word out and talking about this and being able to spread the word. And then somewhere down the road, we'll figure out a way to do some things together. But I wanted to do my part because I know one of the ambitions you mentioned to me is you want to go out and inspire people and help them understand how to have the internal fortitude and motivation that you found. And, I just think that's remarkable. And I love that spirit in people. And those are the type of people I like to spend my time with.
Definitely want to thank you for having me on the show. It's definitely helped me. I get quite nervous talking, and it's something I've got to learn how to actually get past.
Yeah. Well, you could make a whole living doing exactly what you're doing right now, helping people, being beamed into people who are struggling all around the world, and share your story with them.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Really proud of you, buddy. let me know when you're going to do that jump. I want to know about it, and just really just keep inspiring people, and just continue to be brave. And thank you, dude, for being on the show, and just keep us updated as to what's going on with you.
Thank you. And and when you come back to New Zealand, we'll get down to Queenstown, get you jumping out of an airplane.
You're never going to get me jumping out of an airplane.
I know you're not keen, but I can assure you, you'll love it.
Yeah, it ain't gonna happen. It ain't gonna happen. There's certain things that I've pledged in my life that I will not do, and unless I'm on a plane that's got a problem, I'm just sitting right where I'm at.
Well, it's not for everyone.
Yeah, but I appreciate it, man. Hey, thank you for being on the show. I really appreciate it, and I'm sure that we'll do a catch up here in the next 6 months, or whenever you get your jump in. I'd love to catch everybody up and have them stay tuned to hear the rest of the story.
That'll be great. Thanks.
Awesome. Perfect. Thanks, Blair. I appreciate it, man.